Okay, there we go. Took a second to come up. Well, thank you. I'm excited to be here to give the board an update, and thank you to our OPM Dan Pilata for helping and guiding us through this, as well as Chief Darkray and especially Michelle Leary. I know she's a little under the weather tonight, and the whole team from the town manager's office. This has truly been an all hands on deck endeavor, from working with the building department, the building inspector, Nick from facilities to talk about the proposed buildings, mechanics, Selectman Brady, who's been at almost every meeting, and a lot of others I didn't mention, but there's been a true effort here. So here we are. And if you have the next slide, Kevin. This is the team, the project team that we've assembled. Again, I talked about Dan Pilata, the OPM. He's been really a breath of fresh air to bring in on this. He has just a depth and wealth of knowledge, as you can see from his little blurb here. He's not giving you the half of it, but he is a past Plymouth County Commissioner, a member of the Hanover Select Board, and also served on many building committees. So he brings a lot of experience. He understands small town municipal government, and that's been really, really helpful guiding us through this. And he's been on board since I think August. And the architect that we contracted with is HKT Architects, sort of a boutique firm out of Charlestown, and they've been really wonderful too. If I haven't driven, if between myself and Glenn Pratt, if we haven't driven them crazy, they're not leaving. They're with us for the long haul. Next slide, please. This is just sort of a timeline on the project history. If you look down at the bottom, we started in November 2023 when we received funding from town meeting. It was $10.4 million to purchase 135 King Street. It's a for people who don't know, it was an existing office building, 2 floors plus a mezzanine. It's almost like a weird third floor. The purchase was complete back on April 1st of last year, and then into May we issued RFPs for an owner's project manager and an architect. In August we hired P3, and shortly after that, with guidance from P3, we hired HKT as our architect, and we immediately jumped right into it. In a few days, we completed, myself and Chief Darkray, in our working group. In our working group is a couple citizens at large, Dan Tarpey and Rich Kinship, as well as Glenn Pratt, and of course myself and Chief Darkray and Michelle Leary. But we quickly completed a needs assessment and programming for the building on King Street, and also what the next steps were with the Elm Street building, which currently houses both the police and the fire station. That building was built in 1961 to serve us for 50 years, and it's done that and more. One of the things that we learned during this whole process came in October of 24. As part of this process and our due diligence in making this project a reality, is we had to bring this building from the office building that it is a level 2 building, and Dan can probably speak to this. I'll let Dan talk about that. We have to bring it from a level 2 building to a level 4 building, which is public safety grade. And maybe Dan can just talk to the board and explain what that means.
Thank you, Chief. So changing the structure of the building to withstand obvious catastrophes that can occur, especially along the coast with the winds and the rains. The building has to be able to withstand much more pressures laterally. This building doesn't have that type of a structure, so we have to add some pieces of structure to the building within the structure to give the building the rigidity to bring it up to a level 4, which includes foundations, grade beams, and a couple of cross braces. You see the cross braces all the time. When you see buildings going up, you don't think much about them, but they're there for lateral load, and this building needs lateral load to be classified as a public safety center.
So when we finished with the structural engineering study, We took a deep dive into code compliance, and all this is really new to me. I've never really built anything. I own a house, I've owned a couple houses, but this is a whole different animal. But we took a deep dive into code compliance. We hired um, a vendor that came in and really, they actually opened up walls, and along the structural engineer opened up walls, and code compliance came in and looked at everything from, exit signs to, handicap ramps, railings on stairways, just from top to bottom. And this is for both properties. This is for the property at 135 King Street, and also the property on Elm Street, both the police and fire station. That generated a report which is hundreds of pages long, and these things are posted. These studies are posted on the town website under the public safety building page. It's also linked from the CPD website, but you can read these code compliance documents. And the Elm Street campus is really lacking some major problems there as far as code, and we have to get that up to code. King Street is a different story. There's existing stairways and things like that. We're going to need an elevator, and there's going to have to be some changes, but not as extensive as Elm Street. But once that was done, we had a pretty good a baseline of where we're at. In the meantime, we reached out to U.S. Senator Markey's office. Emergency management did. Members of our team, of our committee, met with Senator Markey's staff, and we're really trying to flesh out whether there's any federal grant money for Emergency Operations Center, because that's part of the big picture here. The Operations Center will be inside the police department. We're going to move that Operations Center that we use during storms and major events out of the Deer Hill School basement, so we're not interrupting the learning process in the school day, to the new building at 135 King Street. So they assured us, Senator Markey's office said they would assist in any way possible, and talks are still ongoing with those folks. Fast forward to December of 24, just a few months ago, we did a major site study, soil testing, because we weren't exactly sure what's in the ground up there because of the building's previous life. There was a CV engineering was there, and some various properties, and it turned out the soil is really tough. A lot of clay. It doesn't drain too well. So there was some challenges there with wastewater management and runoff. Nothing insurmountable, but there's definitely going to be a ton of site work that has to be completed. We have to remove a lot of material from that hill, and we're still trying to be creative with how we're going to deal with that. But there were definitely some issues there, and Dan can speak to that towards the end of this. In January, 2 months ago, we reviewed all the studies. We dove into design development and schematic design with the architects. Had a ton of meetings, both in person and on Zoom. This consumes time every single day of the week. We've also engaged our state delegation. We had Senator O'Connor down to 135 King Street along with our representative Mosquito, and they toured the building, and we talked about permitting with MassDOT and receiving state assistance for dealing with the traffic in that area of King Street, and installing emergency lights that would help people get out of that driveway at 135 King Street. They committed to be fully on board, and they were going to help us to the extent that they can, but they were pretty positive about that. And back in early, couple days ago, really, towards the beginning of the month, on the 1st, we took a deep dive into the plans that were presented by the architect, both myself and Chief Doc Ray, Michelle, and Dan. And we reduced some of the scope of the project. Some of the things, there's wants and needs. There was some wants in the design as presented by the architect, and we really boiled it down to what was actually needed. I've said this all along. We're going to do this right, but this building won't be the envy of every police chief on the South Shore. We're just trying to get in with a reasonable budget and move the operation to a proper facility. And we fine tune the programming, and the architect come up with a final conceptual drawing. And next slide, please. So we've divided this into a bunch of phases. Dan, if you want to speak to some of the phases, I don't want to hog the whole time here. If you want to jump in at any point, just give me the high sign.
You were doing great, Chief. You make my job a lot easier. So, phase one obviously is putting the team together and exploring the buildings and finding out the issues that we have. Phase two, which sort of began at the same time as phase one, was to start working on programming and adjacencies. There's a lot of different functions in a police station and a fire substation. And for them to work properly, they have to all fit together just like puzzle pieces in a giant puzzle. So we worked on that in the programming section to get all the adjacencies and the programming correct. And then we took the programming and turned it into a schematic design using every square inch possible of the existing King Street building, as well as the Elm Street building. But the King Street building, it's clear, obviously, with a substation, we're gonna have to have an addition on one side. And to have a sally port, which is necessary for prisoner transport, we needed an addition on the other side of the building. So we worked on trying to develop the most efficient way to use the existing building that you purchased and maximize the amount of space in the building. The third floor that Chief had talked about as being kind of a funky third floor is actually not a floor that you can use. And nor can we use it. So we're going to use that for all of our mechanical equipment and all of our spaces so that we don't take up any other space, so that the existing two floors of the building can be maximized for public safety use. When we finished with the schematic design, we went into design development. And, usually design development is just a fine tune of schematic design, but your staff members really took a hard look at design development. We actually stopped, took a step back and almost did design development twice as they were looking at every little nook and cranny and, where do the radios go? Where are the charging stations going to go? I didn't understand this was going to be like this or like that. So we really did a really fine-tuned design development with a lot of participation from everybody. The site is a difficult site. It is not a site that can't be conquered. We're almost 100% there with our engineering work that is necessary, not for the wastewater, Chief, but for the stormwater. The wastewater system that is there is adequate for the new use of the building. It was designed for a larger use than what will be there with the uses that are proposed, but we will have to design an alternative system in the event that the septic system failed in decades from now. You'll always have to have a backup, and it doesn't have a backup. So we're going to be working on designing a backup system in relation to that system. We have talked to the Board of Health about septic, and we are working currently now on the stormwater and getting those calculations to work. The next phase that we are just starting is construction documents. And construction documents are basically every little nuance in the building gets detailed. As a public bid, we have to literally detail every screw in the building, every hinge, every doorknob, every little piece to this building. And if we don't do a really good job on that, the professional public bidders out there will take advantage of us. So we're taking our time to do the construction documents correctly. Concurrently with the construction documents, we have started the process of pre-qualifying bidders for the project. It is the intent to go to appropriation with a bid in hand and not an estimate for the King Street project, and to go with Elm Street, which will be a year later, with a fully scoped design development estimate. So When we get to town meeting, we can answer any question that anyone in the community has. We want to be able to be open, truthful about everything regarding the project. Phase three will be construction of King Street. Phase 4 will be construction of Elm Street, and phase 5 will be closing it out and closing up the books and moving on to whatever the town's next project would be.
Kevin, next slide, please. This slide just, shows an overview of an aerial overview of the map, but more importantly, on the bottom right corner, this is what, when this becomes reality, this is the problems that are going to be solved by this project happening. There'll be faster response times from 3A Beechwood, for the 3A Beechwood area. We'll have updated facilities to accommodate ADA. We'll have a law compliant facility with cells and detention area. As you know, as I've said before in public meetings, I get a citation every fall from the state because of the shape the cells are in. And it's not an issue of paint or missing screws. It's just that they're ancient cells from a different era. They're bars. They just don't use bars anymore. So we're one of the only departments in the area that is still like that. And again, the state cites us every year, and hopefully we can get beyond that with this project. The Emergency Operations Center will be out of the Dale basement, so we're not interrupting the school day. One of the really cool things about this, on that third floor on King Street, in that mezzanine area, we've worked with IT and we've worked with Dan and the architect and Michelle to make a town data center. So a secure area for town computer infrastructure that will be climate controlled, a proper place that's secure and really a fortress. So our data is secure and protected. And that's, we do our best now, but this will bring us into the future, and there'll be room for expansion. And IT is pretty excited about that. If we fast forward to phase 5 of the project, the Elm Street campus, we're looking at, it's going to house the fire department. The fire department will actually have a training room and proper locker room and proper ADA compliant facilities. But beyond that, there's going to be room for town offices, and things are still shaking out, but it looks like, and Chris can correct me if I'm wrong, but some of the permitting departments will be located on Elm Street. So we're looking at the building department, maybe planning, in operations like that. So it's one-stop shopping for builders and contractors. It's one level, walk right in the door, and you have if you're doing some kind of type of project or looking for a permit, and we're looking at customer experience and having one-stop shopping. Fire departments right there, they can review plans. So that should be really a game changer for the end user. This new station on King Street, as Dan said, we've maximized every inch of the place, and it'll be a proper place for the next 50 years. There were two trains I thought we could build for today, or we could build for the future, and the consensus was to build for the future. And I think we've said that at one of the meetings prior. So we're looking ahead, and we're looking at even we have a couple of offices that can be changed around to meet the needs of the department going forward. Just trying to project on what the challenges will be in 10, 15, 20 years. And one of the things that we'll realize, and Chief Darkwright can speak to this too, but this will help with the employee recruitment and retention. If you look around, Situate has a new station, Marshfield has a new station, Norwell has a new station, Hingham has a new station, Quincy, Rockland. Us and Hull are the only people who haven't updated their public safety infrastructure in years. And that becomes, with the people we're hiring, it becomes a real issue. And if they're torn between going to one department or another, that a lot of times, if they can have their own locker, if they don't have to carry their stuff in their car, that's the thing that drives their final decision. So this should help with the employee recruitment and retention. Next slide. So this is just the floor plans for the building. I know they're hard to see. I sent them under separate cover to the board, and we'll have these available for people to look at. And the next slide, please. And this is the conceptual drawing that the architect has come up with. If you notice, in the center is the existing building. On the left is the fire substation. It's 2 bays, and on the far right is the police sally port. The first bay is prisoner detention. Second bay is a regular garage, and the third bay is for evidence storage, large evidence. Like if we have to seize a car, if there's a bad accident, we have to seize cars and we hold them. Next slide. And I'll let Dan take this.
So we want to be as open, as transparent as we possibly can. We have begun to do newsletters and post them to your website through Michelle. As now that we've finished design development, there are pretty pictures and things for people to actually digest as opposed to words. You'll start to see more and more of that going forward. The community engagement doesn't stop with just the written word or the posted word. This group is, dedicated to going to any group necessary to explain the need for what we're doing and explain each part and piece to it. So as we move forward, we'll be hopping around to some of the boards, the finance committee, advisory board, your energy committee, as this building is going to be really energy efficient when we're done, compared to what it is today. And things, certain groups that, may say, why do we need this? We have an existing fire station, we have an existing police station. Why is there truly a need? We're gonna walk through and make sure that everyone is fully educated before they come to town meeting, so that, an educated public can make the right decision at town meeting.
And we can open it up to any questions the board may have, and this is the last slide.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Dan.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Flex, any questions?
Great presentation. Glad you're keeping the project moving. Appreciate that you're focusing on that community engagement piece, because just like you said, we want people, when they get to town meeting, to already have the information. So I'm glad you're well ahead of that. Thank you.
Mr. Grady?
Having a small part in meeting. It's a question, just a part rhetorical, but Chief Quigley, John F. Kennedy was president when the Elm Street building was put up, right?
Yes, that's true. 1960, late 61, 62.
So that's over 62, 63 years ago. In all that time, what has Cohasset Fire and Police asked of the town by way of financing?
I think it's as far as infrastructure, there was an upgrade, I think, in the late 80s. And then again, there was another, we hired female officers in the early 90s, and they had to retrofit the station with female locker rooms. There was only 2 lockers for females. And then again, in I think 2003, John, right? We had to raise the roof of the fire station, and we added a small conference room in the police station. But it's been very modest. But we're actually out of room now. Even if we wanted to add on to that building or change it, we're just out of room. There's no. If you look at the parking lot, we have Quonset huts up. We have storage containers with. We started out with 3 garages. We're down to we had to take one out of service and cinder block it up just to hold evidence. When I started, it was just a phone and a microphone on the desk, and now things have just changed, unbelievably. There's computers at every desk, and strict rules regarding evidence. as you know, we have some major cases, in cases that garner international attention. You don't want to botch the evidence in something like that. Mr. Farag can speak to that as an attorney. It's the first thing attorneys go after. So if you don't have proper procedures and a proper place to keep evidence, and there's going to be big trouble. So we're just at that point where we've just outgrown the place. It was originally, it was built for, I think, 8 people, eight officers. And right now we have 37 employees, 21 officers in total, and then civilian employees. So it's just a different time, and the building has served us well, but it's time to move on.
Well, the figure I have in mind over 62 years that I've picked up is $1.8 million for small infrastructural upgrades, tune-ups, adding the women's locker rooms, raising the roof. $1.8 million over 62 years. That factors into about maybe $49,000 over that period of time, a year, and that's all you've asked.
Pretty good investment.
Yeah, I'd say we have a hell of an investment.
Yeah.
And so our population, both chiefs, has grown by, especially over moving across 3A towards the Beechwood area. And because that's a hell of a trip coming from Elm Street up over towards Beechwood, which used to be primarily farms, which Holly Hill was in front of us a little while ago. So what is our population grown to now, chief? Or chiefs?
8,300.
8,300.
About 8,300.
And I'm gonna guess when that fire station was put up, we're probably tinkering around 4,000, maybe 4,200.
I think when that fire station was put up, there was a fire station in Beechwood that closed during Prop 2.5.
Yeah,
And one in West Corner also.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so that one building is housed, and combined with police and fire, how many people now? Police and fire combined in that small building?
We're supposed to be at 26. So 26 members of the department.
26 of the fire department, you said.
21 sworn, 37 total, but 21 uniform officers.
Yeah, you kind of packed at the gills.
Yeah.
And I've seen the Quonset huts.
Yeah.
So, and just the last, and this is definitely rhetorical. It's primarily based in the town, and I've said this before, but can any one of you give me a price that could be possibly put on the safety of our citizens and of our police and fire departments?
There is no price.
I didn't think so.
There is no price.
Yeah.
No,
And so then I agree with my colleague is we get this out, socialize it. It's a fantastic program. It's a fantastic plan. It's something that's got to come down the pike. So obviously, you know where I'm going with it. I support it 120%. Again, I want just people to know is what price do you put on safety? And what price do you put on the safety of your teams and the people that keep this town safe? So, but thank you so much. It's a great presentation.
thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Farag?
Thank you. I just want to ask Chief Docker, because one of the points on there was the improved response times. And so what was your expectation of what the response time would be by having that substation over there as opposed to on Elm Street?
It probably will cut some of half our response time to certain parts of town, right? So North Cohasset, it's about a 9-minute response time. The Beechwood Ball Field is about a 10-minute response time. And one of the issues too that we have that wasn't mentioned is we have a commuter rail that cuts this town right in half, straight right in half. And we've had a couple incidents where the train has blocked access on one of our roadways to a certain part of town. And that train doesn't move until the T says it's safe to move. So then we have to now figure an alternate way around, and it's going to add additional response times. So we're talking right now, train going through the center right now. I know for Pleasant Street Crossing, once that gate comes down, it's a 2-minute wait for that train to go through and the gates to come up. So that adds another 2 more minutes to our response time, just to the hillside, which where I live is maybe about a 4-minute response time. So that adds 2 minutes. So that's key, very key to our response to hopefully to get to a scene to stabilize, whether it be a medical or a house fire, a gas leak, or some kind of electrical emergency, that we can hopefully get there in time and stabilize it so it doesn't become a bigger incident.
Great, thank you. And so I hope everyone hears that who's living on the Beechwood side, North Cohasset. is that this would cut the response times in half by having that fire substation, you know, among all the other benefits of the fire police. This project is not a want, it is a need, and it's a very desperate need for Cohasset. For far too long, you know, there's a saying goes, you're putting 10 pounds in a 5-pound bag. Well, if you've gone on a tour of our police and fire station on 62 Elm, we're probably putting 15 pounds in a 5-pound bag. Because there's just no room in there for both departments not only to be there, but even individually. So this will help space everything out, help by moving with response times. And I think as the police chief had mentioned, with all the different kinds of cases we've had in Cohasset, and if you've been following those, whether you're reading the newspaper, you follow the police on Facebook, you're seeing the types of crimes that we're having in Cohasset. These are far different crimes than we had 10 or even 15 years ago. The game has changed. And so to make sure our fire department, our police department are brought into the 21st century and that they've got the training rooms, the training, the equipment, and the stations to be able to deliver those services to the citizens of Cohasset is something that we should all support. So as we go through the process, I hope that anyone out there who has any questions or needs to understand the project more, please either contact anybody here or the town manager's office. And we will personally bring you on a tour if you need to, if you don't think that we need a new fire and police station. Thank you.
Chief, I
Thank
have one
you.
more question. Sorry,
Go ahead, Paul.
just, how many ambulances do we have?
We have 2 ambulances.
All right, so can you tell me where they're stored? And I do think we have one down behind Town Hall.
Correct. So our primary ambulance responds out of Elm Street. But when our primary ambulance breaks down, we need to put up our backup. So it's kept behind Town Hall. And because it's kept behind Town Hall and not under our roof, it's not stored with all the proper EMS gear that we need to run it. So if we need to spin that up, it's going to take us about a half hour to spin that up. Okay. If it's under our roof, it will take us 30 seconds to spin it up. Because if it's stored under our roof, under our control, we can put all the supplies on it and deploy it when we need it.
So if we have, for instance, one of those ambulances, the active ambulance is over at South Shore Hospital or Evoke or someplace like that, and we have another emergency way across town,
If we have the staffing,
that's gonna cause some problems, isn't it?
yeah, but if we have the staffing, eventually, instead of relying on mutual aid to come into town from Situate or Hingham or Hull, or even sometimes Norwell, Rockland and Marshfield, we can staff that ambulance and respond quicker.
Thank you so much.
Great, thank you. I just have a couple of comments. So in the project history, you talked about, going out to Senator Markey for some funding and also having Senator O'Connor and Representative Moschino in. If there's any support that we can lend, if it would be helpful to have the select board, pen something in support of all this and your grants and applications, let us know. We're happy to do so. Not that we would move the needle, but you never know.
No, that was one of the things that our state delegation and the federal folks said, we're gonna need, the local leaders are gonna have to be, heard on this and be behind it. So that's great news and thank you.
Okay, sure. There was a question from Katie Dugan on the Zoom chat. Is there going to be a meeting room at 135 King Street that perhaps other town boards and committees could use?
Yes, there's a large public meeting room. It's also an EOC. It can be spun up into an EOC, but there's a large meeting room that will house up to 49 people. And it's wired, it's proposed to be wired with multiple TV screens, and also you'd be able to go live on cable or have a Zoom meeting, a Zoom meeting like this. So there is public meeting space. Yes, that was one of the things that we really focused on. We wanted to be able to expand the places where the town where people can meet, committees and boards and even town groups. It's
Great.
everybody's building.
Great, thank you. And then I just have one last thing. So Chief Dockery and Chief Quigley, in your budget presentations, you had a slide, and forgive me, I don't have it in front of me, but you had a slide about the, the escalation in the number of calls over a period of time. And I would definitely include that kind of data in your public outreach programs, because it was quite dramatic. And that coupled with level staffing, it really shows how a new building needs to be efficient and support what you're doing, because what you're doing so much more than ever before. But I thought that was very impactful in your budget.
Well, thank you. That's great advice, and we'll absolutely follow up with that.
Okay,
Definitely.
all right.
If I may just, one caveat, not a caveat, one clarification. Mr. Bellata and the chiefs are talking about town meeting. When they say town meeting, they mean special town meeting in November.
Yes.
So,
Right.
right, just want to be clear, so this is not heading for May,
Not annual.
not annual, but it is heading for the town meeting, which instead of September, I think we're now looking at November. So we're gonna circle back in a couple of weeks and then get a better date on that.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Senior. All right, are there any questions in the audience, Mr. Grady? I can't see.
Any questions, anybody? I think we wrapped it up.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate the presentation.
you.
Keep us
Thank you.
posted.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Chief.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.